always be ready for war. This expression may sound simple, but it bears witness to the relentless work of the Israeli police's bomb removal squad during the rocket attacks from Gaza last week. Under enemy fire, their objective is to reach all impact zones. Heavily equipped, they neutralize explosives or so-called rocket engines, but their work does not end when the guns go silent. Of the 1,469 projectiles fired during Operations Shield and Arrow from Gaza, more than a third crashed in what is called open areas. This is exactly where the deminers come in. Yair is recovering from surgery, but there is no time for a break. He has to leave immediately. He goes to the area of impact. We found a rocket, he says, in a field next to the border, and we received hundreds of calls during those days of conflict. One should understand. We have many calls from farmers, hikers who discover rockets or debris, he says. We have to take care of all of that. The work never ends. This is what their mission looks like on the ground. First, the area must be sterile. Then, mini excavators are deployed to recover dozens of debris buried underground. In this wide shot, we can clearly see how close we are to these famous open areas, and the local residents a few hundred meters away.
Nowhere else in the world, not New York, Paris, London, would allow this type of terror on their civilians. Behind me, you can see the mountain of rockets that the EOD specialists retrieved after they fell in places such as parks and streets where women, children, and families walk on the day-to-day basis.
Sometimes they find rockets which are almost intact, like this one. The writing says Azadin al-Qassam, the armed wing of Hamas, with a range of 20 kilometers. It's then necessary to act with precaution, to place the rocket in a safe place. Put on your safety gear, take cover, and start a controlled explosion of the projectile.
And I'm here with Superintendent Raz Manor, officer of the bomb squad unit in Ofakim. Thank you very much for welcoming us. What happened during these 5 days of war? You worked 24/7, almost 25/7 a day, with collecting and neutralizing these rockets. Can you describe us the situation on the ground?
We have just ended a significant cycle of fighting with Gaza, during which hundreds, in fact more than 1,400 rockets were fired at localities in Israel's south and throughout the country. During this operation, a large number of rockets were intercepted. Some exploded in open areas and others, which constitute a danger, are still on the ground. We visited dozens of sites where rockets fell, in the Negev and Lachish area. Bomb disposal units in the southern district are currently clearing the ground. And now, after the operation, after the fighting, we are in fact clearing the ground of all unexploded rockets at all the sites concerned, all in order to ensure the safety of the population of the southern district for which we are responsible.
We know for a fact that most of the rockets landed in open areas. So what is your work later on?
Indeed, in the Negev, a large number of rockets fell in open areas. These are rockets that were not intercepted by the Iron Dome, and we will drop them in fields, places that aren't inhabited. But after it's all over, people go back to their farmlands, to the greenhouses, to their tree plantations, to the yards, and that's where you find the unexploded ordnance that actually was recorded as an open area. This is where we come in. In cooperation with the security forces and with the IDF, we clean up all the sites where people have found rockets. I take this opportunity that wherever rockets have fallen, whether unexploded rockets or shards of ammunition, please do not touch them. It is very dangerous. Call the police. They will send a deminer who will determine if it's a dangerous object, if it is possible to lift it, if it is possible to move it. In many sites, we use robots, so not to endanger the officer. We transport them to secure locations and then detonate them in a controlled manner.
You know, I have a question that's very interesting to me. Once there is an alert, all the civilians are running to the shelters, or maybe they live in shelters. But officers, soldiers, and bomb squad units need to be outside. What happened in your head when you know that your family is at home and you have to be outside?
First of all, I want to say that the families of our officers in the southern district live in the border areas. That is to say that when we work, we protect our own families. But at the same time, as soon as the warning sirens sound, and so that we can work peacefully, our families follow the instructions and stay in the shelters. In most of our missions during this confrontation, while we were operating, alerts were going off, whether in Lachish, Ashkelon, Ashdod districts, the Gaza Strip border, at home in the Negev area, in the neighboring communities, in Netivot, in the farming communities. This is the reason why, during these periods, we move with protection equipment, a helmet, a ceramic vest, so that if by misfortune a rocket falls near us, we are protected to the maximum.
Do you let me lift in this rocket to understand if this is heavy? Second, I guess it kills. And third, how much damage this rocket can cause.
I'm going to show you something. I don't want you to touch it. The materials that make up the rocket are hazardous materials, and it's also dangerous to breathe in. Some rockets are indeed very heavy. We are not talking about engines that are very heavy. And if the rocket did not explode, we must add to the weight of the explosive. I'll show you, if you want, a type of rocket which remains very heavy even after exploding. This whole part contains a deflagration engine. Once it has exploded, we see that the projectile is very heavy, and often it takes several people to lift it and evacuate it. We use our robots quite frequently, and often on sites where rockets have exploded, we use local council tractors to help us put them on carts, clean up the place, bring everything back here to us. We keep very little of them here. We constantly send what we collect to be recast. We have very impressive quantities.
Can you tell the world or the international community that this rocket kills? There's no other words for that.
It's very simple. A rocket like this, or a mortar shell like that, or another type of rocket. As long as these projectiles fall near people who are not in shelters, they kill. Shelters save lives, and we ask at all times to follow the instructions. Move to the shelters as soon as there is an alert. This will protect you from missiles that may land directly on you or nearby. It can save your life. Sometimes there's almost no time. Be aware that in areas bordering the Gaza Strip, the projectile takes only 15 seconds to get there. It is truly something that can save lives, which saves many lives. We saw several cases where rockets and mortar shells fell directly on shelters or right next to them, and people were saved. If you're not in cover and the rocket lands near you, it kills.
raz manor, תודה רבה.
תודה לכם.